Hello everyone, Rorius here, back with Portal 2, the developer commentary. Now, last time we managed to get through the escape chapter, that's chapter 5, and Wheatley, of course, has now taken the facility. He has put GLaDOS in a potato and pushed us down an elevator shaft, which is now hurtling. Well, we got sort of ejected from the elevator shaft and now we're hurtling down a huge pit. The Fall. Aptly named chapter 6. We are falling now down to, well, you'll see where we're falling. Most of you probably already know where we're falling, but we're falling down, that's all you need to know. And we'll pick right up from there. This is a great scene, by the way. This is one of my absolute favorites, and as I said last time, like, I feel so bad for GLaDOS, and I totally agree with almost everything that she says in this section. She treats you badly, but it's... yeah, you'll see.
Oh, hi. So, how are you holding up? Because I'm a potato. Oh, good. My slow clap processor made it into this thing. So we have that. Since it doesn't look like we're going anywhere, well, we are going somewhere.
Alarmingly fast.
Actually. But since we're not busy other than that, here's a couple of facts. He's not just a regular moron. He's the product of the greatest minds of a generation, working together with the express purpose of building the dumbest moron who ever lived. And you just put him in charge of the entire facility. Good, that's still working.
Oh dear.
Just in case this pit isn't actually bottomless, do you think maybe you could unstrap one of those long fall boots of yours and shove me into it? Just remember to land on one foot.
Shit. Poor potato GLaDOS. Yeah. So yeah, we basically fell as far as you can fall in the Aperture Science facility. The bird. What does a bird want with a potato? Yeah, so essentially we fell down what is the largest, it's got to be the largest elevator shaft in the entire of Aperture Science. And we have fallen through the barrier between old Aperture and new Aperture, and so we're firmly at the bottom of old Aperture. It looks like a giant cooling tower, is what it looks like we're in, but yeah, there is actually a node here, so hopefully there's going to be a bunch of them here, because this area is super interesting.
While making Portal 2, we explored our way through vast quantities of reference material. Inspirations included photos of NASA's Apollo and Shuttle programs, CERN's particle accelerators, both modern and obsolete, industrial robots, derelict Soviet space shuttles, overgrown temples, Brussels metro stations, seedy American motels, junkyards filled with rocketry equipment, Chinese apartment blocks under construction, Polish shipyards, neutrino detectors deep underground in nickel mines, corporate headquarters from a variety of eras, commercial nuclear reactors, experimental fusion reactors, rain-sodden book depositories in Detroit, peculiar cameras, forgotten space probes, you name it.
Yeah, so a lot of inspirational, you know, a lot of stuff that they drew from for inspiration. I totally saw the, you know, they talked about the reactors and test reactors and stuff like that. This definitely looks like a cooling tower from a nuclear reactor to me. Well, like inside at least, definitely looks like one. But nevertheless, let's move on. I freaking love the design stuff down here. I love this old part of Aperture. It's basically it's my favorite, probably my absolute favorite part of the game, is this old section of Aperture. And I'm sure they're going to talk about it a hell of a lot in the immediate parts of the game. But the old part of Aperture went through a lot of changes, a lot of things changed during the development. Actually, a lot of that might be in the last hours. Portal 2, the last hours. There's some really cool stuff that they talk about in that, about the development of Portal 2. Like how, for instance, how Portal 2 was not going to have portals in it. Originally, Portal 2 had a very different story. But we'll leave it for the developers to talk about. I think you can portal your way over there. No? Maybe not. Okay. Yeah. All sorts of damaged and destroyed facility parts, as well as stuff that's fallen from, like, new aperture down here. Is it over here that you... No? Okay. I think you do get up there eventually, but... Yeah, I think you get it up from over here. Oh, that's where I was thinking. Yeah, actually I'll go over there just because it's a... This is where you're supposed to go, and then you're supposed to see up here. I think. But yeah, basically we're heading over that direction, so... we're heading over this little barrier here. Yeah, because this is sort of the entranceway, a boarded off entranceway to the main parts of old Aperture Science. Oh dear. Cosmic ray spallation of elements. Sounds like hocus pocus to me. But there might be some science behind that, some real science. Keep out. All sorts of keep out signs and stuff. Yeah. It's interesting how even after all this time, somehow old Aperture is still sort of active and semi-functional. Ah, they're gonna talk about this scene. This is a really interesting one. Oh, before we continue though, I will just mention, I apologize if my voice sounds a bit hoarse. I've been talking a lot today. So, my voice might sound a bit croakier or deeper or grindier, gravelly. If that's a problem, I do apologize if that bothers you.
The size of the gigantic transition seal lock was a happy accident. We knew the connection between the old Aperture and the new Aperture had to be a big set piece. The first model built was about 5 times bigger than everyone expected, but people started to like it. We joked that it should be a bullet point on the Portal 2 box. Features the biggest door in games ever. We decided it would be fun to play with the player's expectations, and put a puny-looking door behind it, along with a few small props.
Yeah. So yeah, this was born from an accident. Like it's so typical. It's actually a very common thing if you ever make models for the source engine. It's sometimes difficult to determine how large an object is going to be until you get it in there. I mean, I'm sure Valve is pretty good at determining nowadays, but whenever I've put models into the game, I've always had to tweak files that go with a model to get the sizing to be kind of what I want it to be. This is probably born from something like that, where they made a little model that they thought was just going to be like a hatch, but ended up being way too big when they imported it. But then it was like, that was kind of cool. It looked cool in the game, so it's like, yeah, why not? And I love that idea that they would... That's such like the humor that they went with in Portal 2, of the idea that they're like, oh yeah, biggest door in games. Such a like a Cave Johnson-esque kind of joke or comment. Actually, one thing I'll mention is that this is actually kind of almost a... I don't know if this was the intention, but this is like a reflection of a puzzle that's in Portal 1, where you have to... There's a puzzle where you need to press 2 buttons, and you have to... Yeah, there's elevators going up to buttons, and you have to press the 2 buttons, and then put a energy ball into a receiver. This is a similar puzzle where there's no real way to get to each of these buttons without a portal, and so you have to, yeah, the idea is that you gotta go through and press both buttons within a time limit, and that opens the door. I don't have a portal over there anymore. I was gonna stand back and watch the door. Oh, watch it from this side. Nope, no, it's better from this side. Huge, like, hatch. Raises up to this huge tunnel, which has a teeny little oh dear, I love this. I love that there's just a tiny little door with a stool next to it. Oh dear. I think that's excellent. Yeah, they draw this huge thing up. It's all dark. You can't see where it is, and then it's just this huge flat wall with a teeny door. Oh dear. The idea that they needed this huge hatch to keep it closed, and then it's just like, yeah, it's just a door there, as if like, and a couple of chairs, as if someone sits there monitoring the door. Alrighty. And now this area also has my absolute favorite music from the game in it. The whole under aperture, or the lower old aperture is what I usually call it. This whole section has freaking awesome music. Yep, got acid, the classic acid, and a little sign showing that you will dissolve. It's like ribcage and shit. It's really caustic stuff, dangerous stuff. Do not lean on railing here. Alrighty.
The lake map marks a total reset to the aesthetics and scale of the environments up to this point in the game. You come into the underground cave compressed, and as you progress further into the map, your eye is drawn upwards by the elevator tower, sparking cables, falling debris, and finally the test spheres, which recede vertically into nothingness. This looking upwards gives the player a sense of the vastness of aperture before GLaDOS, and a visual sense of the daunting climb they will have to make to get back to Wheatley. The open areas encourage the player to explore their surroundings and take a break from the intensive puzzle solving of the test chambers.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to stay back just in case things happen when you walk out here. I know the music picks up, which is really cool in my opinion. But yeah, despite what he says about these things drawing your eye line up, I was way too focused on the spheres down here and like this whole section of the wall and the cave and stuff. I didn't even notice that there's these huge dangling spheres in the ceiling, and like later parts of the levels up above. Yeah, I never realized that these, well, initially I didn't realize that these spheres were so open like this. I always remember testing in the spheres, and I remember the puzzles being in spheres, but I never noticed that there was an exterior version like this that you could see while you're wandering through here. I'm not exactly the most observant gamer. I try to be observant, I try to monitor everything, but when I'm first playing through something, especially something I'm excited about, like Portal 2, I don't always take it all in straight away. But yeah, I freaking love this idea. I don't know why, I just love the whole elevator going into the sphere and like spheres holding certain testing elements. I think it's fantastic. I know we're supposed to go through here, but I'll just go through here just to remind myself. That's right, the vitrified doors. Does this one have any sound on it? No. There's a whole bunch of doors with Cave Johnson recordings, which I could try and locate all of them. I probably would miss one or two of them though if I don't have a list. Yeah, they vitrify the chambers whenever they're no longer continued. Right, so this is supposed to be a train that takes you directly. Alrighty, I'll just skip back in here. Okay. I think that was one of two, wasn't it? That.
The lake map.
Yeah. Okay. So there's one more somewhere in here. It's probably going to be inside. Yeah. I love the idea that you're going into the bowels and like reawakening to some degree, or you know, stumbling upon a still active old aperture, where you're, you know, somewhat turning it on as you go.
Welcome, gentlemen, to Aperture Science. Astronauts, war heroes, Olympians, you're here because we want the best, and you are it. So, who is ready to make some science?
I am.
Now, you already met one another on the limo ride over, so let me introduce myself. I'm Cave Johnson.
On the limo.
I own the place.
I own the
Your
place.
voice you heard is the lovely Carolyn, my assistant. Rest assured, she has transferred your honorarium to the charitable organization of your choice. Isn't that right, Carolyn?
Yes, sir, Mr. Johnson.
She's the backbone of this facility. Pretty as a postcard, too. Sorry, fellas. She's married.
To science. I freaking... Like, I loved J.K. Simmons in the Spider-Man movies. The Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies. I got a whole new love for him as an actor, as a voice actor generally, as a person for this game. Like this, I think he despite the fact he's not quite what they originally had intended Cave Johnson to sound like and to act like, as far as I'm aware. I am so glad that they went with J.K. Simmons because he's excellent. Him and Ellen McLean. I think I said this in a video that I might not have ever uploaded. There was a video I made a long time ago for Portal 2. Actually, I think that was the very first video I ever recorded that I didn't upload. I mentioned the fact that in my opinion, J.K. Simmons and Ellen McLean, they make this game. Admittedly, Stephen Merchant as well. J.K. Simmons, Ellen McLean, and Stephen Merchant, their amazing work that they do for this game is what makes this game so good. The writers and the developers of the game as well, but like they're the voices of the game. You know, the characters in the game are, and by extension the voice actors who do them, they're the ones who you definitely feel when you're going through the game. So I feel like they, despite the fact that yes, there's a lot of work done by a lot of people all working on the game, for me at least, it's those voice actors, their work that came into the game is what makes this game so excellent. Please excuse the inconvenience. Yeah, the lift back to this is the elevator. Yeah, main lift to surface. This would take you straight back to the surface if it was active, but it's not. Yeah, I love this original old Aperture because they're like they're so proud and sure of themselves. It doesn't last very long. Oh god. Let's see if I can get it. No, I can't quite get it. No. Oh, god damn it. Okay, just take it real slow. There we go. Oop, it's not that slow. Alright, let's do this. But yeah, I also love the puzzles where you have to go through. You have to solve. Yeah, the guy in the previous node was talking about this section essentially being a break from the intensive puzzles earlier. I like though that they still included a lot of the mechanics of Portal in these sections. Yeah. I love that you have to go through the sign there. The old Aperture sign. You fly through the aperture. Okay, I'm going to stand back because I think Cave Johnson will start talking if I move forward. But
this chapter gave us a great opportunity for visually telling the backstory of Aperture science. We accomplish this with signs, props, and materials. In this area, we get a glimpse of what Aperture science must have been like in its heyday. We used rich, warm colors and materials like carpeting and marble to indicate that Aperture had a lot of money at one time. Cave Johnson and his staff were just starting out in their enterprise, and everyone was eager to do science. This stands in contrast to the stark, cavernous environment outside and the materials you see in Aperture Lab from later decades. As the player makes their way through more recent areas of the lab, the materials become cheaper, with an abundance of plastic and linoleum showing that Aperture had fallen on harder times and could no longer build high-quality offices for its workers.
Yeah, I love that. I love this whole...
performed every day here in our enrichment spheres. I can't personally oversee every one of them, so these pre-recorded messages will cover any questions you might have and respond to any incidents that may occur in the course of your science adventure. Your test assignment will vary depending on the manner in which you have bent the world to your will. Those of you helping us test the repulsion gel today, just follow the blue line on the floor. Those of you who volunteered to be injected with praying mantis DNA, I've got some good news and some bad news. Bad news is we're postponing those tests indefinitely. Good news is we've got a much better test for you. Fighting an army of mantis men. Pick up a rifle and follow the yellow line.
You'll know when the test starts. Oh, I love it. And this is actually someone who works at Valve. Like they took the likeness of one of Valve's employees and put it into, I forget which one it is now. Which one is the one they used? But they used him as the young Cave Johnson. Okay, so that was the last node for this particular map. But yeah, I love this look, this original look of Aperture Science. I forget which year this is supposed to be set in. It's either 50s or 60s. And yeah, essentially they were wealthy and they just had all this money and they utilized that money. And This is the original, earliest rooms of Aperture. I love it. Yeah, exactly what she said. I love that, you know, the progression in the timeline, as well as in the player's ability to get through, or, you know, as the player's making their way, they're making their way through the timeline of Aperture over the last, like, 50 years. Yeah. I love these scenes, but once again, these... Oh, I should have hopped out while I was down there. Caution, do not fall down elevator shaft. A little hint. Little hint towards the solution to the puzzle. I think I just sort of... Yeah, this elevator doesn't go right in. It's that one that goes in. Yeah, that's right. I wonder if I can... Oh, wait, before I jump in properly, I'm just going to quickly go over here, because there's some vitrified chambers.
If you've cut yourself at all in the course of these tests, you might have noticed that your blood is pure gasoline. That's normal. We've been shooting you with an invisible laser that's supposed to turn blood into gasoline, so all that means is it's working.
As much as I love Cave Johnson, his comments, his dialogue lines, they're terrifying. That kind of shit freaks me out. Shooting you with lasers that turn your blood into gasoline? Like, what?
If you need to go to the bathroom after this next series of tests, please let a test associate know, because in all likelihood, whatever comes out of you is going to be coal. Only temporary, so do not worry. If it persists for a week, though, start worrying and come see us, because that's not supposed to happen.
This one makes you pee coal.
Just a heads up, we're going to have a superconductor turned up full blast and pointed at you for the duration of this next test. I'll be honest, we're throwing science at the wall here to see what sticks. No idea what it'll do. Probably nothing. Best case scenario, you might get some superpowers. Worst case, some tumors, which we'll cut out.
Lots of stuff about tumors in this facility. Yeah, I think I'll just I'll go back down here because I think it's a little closer to the solution. We need to get down there. It's a long jump from here. But yeah, no, I think those ones don't freak me out too much. Like that's scary, but it's kind of humorous and funny as well at the same time. It's the one that's actually in the main test that you do, one of the main tests you do. When he starts talking about the postcard-sized. I'll point it out when he mentions it. It's terrifying. It freaks me the hell out. Anything to do with brain stuff always freaks me out. It's one of my sort of phobias. It's anything related to the brain. Ooh. It's a very narrow path you have to land on. Alrighty, I think I just... Yeah, so we're switching on the pump stations. So this is where all of the gel, all of the I forget exactly what the paint, essentially, like repulsion, propulsion, and portal gel comes from. So yeah, we just turned this pumping station on so that it's now pumping the repulsion gel into these tubes for the test, for the testing, you know, for the tests, for the levels.
Is built on the shoulders of giants. Not here. At Aperture, we do all our science from scratch. No hand-holding.
No hand-holding. Oh, dear. I like the cut of his jib. I like Cave Johnson and the way he thinks. Even though it's insane, most of it, I just love it. I just love his I love his mind. I love the way his mind works. Yeah.
Alright, let's get started. This first test involves something the lab boys call repulsion gel. You're not part of the control group, by the way. You get the gel. Last poor son of a gun got blue paint. All joking aside, that did happen. Broke every bone in his legs. Tragic, but informative. Or so I'm told.
I love that. I love that. It's just like you're not part of the control group, by the way. That's not how control groups work. Oh dear. Oh dear. So yeah, these are the spheres that you make your way through. I think you make your way through 3 of them. I don't remember if it's true, but I feel like they originally had... Well, I know that they had at least one further set of spheres that you made your way through. in the original version that got cut out. The in the earlier versions of the game, they had all the gels come from a game called Tag: The Power of Paint. It's a student project, much like Narbacular Drop. You're probably familiar with it if you're watching this series, but just in case you're not, I would recommend you look it up and play it. Tag: The Power of Paint. Very cool game. Very cool, like, concept style game. And we actually, our mod group, me and the mod guys, we were originally going to... We were actually already working on a mod for Portal 2 that was going to be essentially tag related. It's going to be related to that universe along with Portal's universe, or our version of Portal's universe. But the project never really got... It got a lot of concepts, and we made a bunch of maps that were similar in nature to the maps in the Tag Power Paint game, except from a very different graphical and visualistic style, I guess. Yeah, we got a little way in, and unfortunately, due to life things, it never had the chance to take off. And then someone released the Aperture Tag mod on Steam, and totally took any thunder out of the potential of us doing a tag game. I love that game, by the way. I play it. I have played it a couple times. Yeah, interesting thing to note here is that according to the sign, in the original Aperture, they had these portal devices, and I think Cave Johnson talks about the portal device all the time. So they definitely had portal devices. But unfortunately, this contradicts the story that they originally had for Portal in the first game, and so I'm a little bit unsure of certain story elements, because originally the portal gun had not been finished when GLaDOS took over the facility, and the portal gun actually was developed eventually by GLaDOS herself. GLaDOS's whole intention originally in Portal 1 was to be... Essentially, Aperture had the idea of portals and the portal gun, but they were struggling to make it happen. And they, unlike Black Mesa and Portal was, Black Mesa and Aperture Science were supposed to both be vying for funding for a portal device of some variety. Black Mesa had their discoveries with the Zen crystals, and discovery of Zen and entanglement and that kind of thing. But Aperture had this non-dimensional tunneling. The Aperture Science portable quantum tunneling device. They had this idea in mind, and they thought they were trying to figure out how to make it happen. But they, instead of doubling down on the experiments like Black Mesa did, Black Mesa doubled down on it, kept working on the portal devices, and eventually, as happens in Portal 1 and Half-Life 1, they caused the Resonance Cascade, which is the main event that happens in the Portal universe that causes aliens to invade Earth. Aperture, on the other hand, they, instead of trying to double down on the portal gun, they thought instead that they would develop an artificial intelligence to basically do the testing for them. They wanted to create GLaDOS, essentially. They started working on GLaDOS so that she could then drastically speed up the testing process for the portal device. And then after some work, after they finally got GLaDOS up and operational, the first thing she did is she started neurotoxin gassing the facility. And at some point before everyone died, they managed to create whatever, the morality core, and stick it into her, and that stopped her from gassing the facility. That was the original story of Portal 1, essentially. But with Portal 2, because of this, they decided to utilize the old facility as part of the narrative and have the portal gun involved in that narrative. They threw a lot of those story elements out, and so it's difficult to decide what is canon and what's not canon because of that. And so the story in this game is that they developed the portal device a long time ago. They were just trying to test different functions of the portal device along with other products, some of which were like the likes of the repulsion and propulsion gels, which were marketed but were horrible failures because they're ridiculous. The gels themselves are amazing, but the execution of their use, which is on a chart over here, their eventual use was a poor decision of use, essentially, for these gels. And so they were commercial failures, and so they basically bankrupted themselves by poorly marketing their products. But interestingly, yeah, in this canon, they had developed the portal gun already back at this point. It's really interesting. So yeah, so this is what they originally had used it for. So yeah, did you know? Aperture Science, fact, placard, some numbers, repulsion gel. Repulsion gel was Aperture's first attempt to create a dietetic whatever, pudding substitute. It's true, the gel is a sweeter, slightly less non-toxic form of fiberglass insulation that causes subsequently ingested food items to bounce off the lining of the dieter's distended stomach and out of his or her mouth. For various reasons, this product was pulled from the shelves. Basically, yeah, whenever someone would try and eat anything, this was supposed to be like a, yeah, to help you diet. Whenever you would eat anything after you've eaten the gel, instead of going through you and being digested, it would basically bounce back out of your mouth. It was basically like forcing you to not eat. Terrible idea.
Similar to the way the student game Narbacular Jop became the original Portal, the paint mechanics in Portal 2 come from a student game, Tag: The Power of Paint. The repulsion gel in Portal 2 is modeled after the bounce paint from Tag, but was redesigned to fit better within Portal. The original bounce paint always bounced the player at a fixed height and activated whenever the player touched the paint. We changed the repulsion gel to reflect the player's velocity, such that they will bounce back up to the height that they fell from. This mechanic lends itself better to puzzles involving portals because players have to think about gaining and preserving height. We also changed the repulsion gel to only activate if the player jumps off of or falls onto the gel. This was done because players would often accidentally walk onto repulsion gel that they didn't see and then trigger an unwanted bounce. This was a particularly nasty problem in Portal 2 because the player couldn't get rid of paint once it was applied, whereas in Tag the player can erase paint at any time they want.
Yeah, so in the original Tag you couldn't actually jump, and so you had to rely on the bounce paint, or in this case repulsion gel, in order to jump at all, basically. But actually I just remembered the reason I brought it all up before, and of course it got explained by the developers, I should just let them explain it. Yeah, essentially what was originally going to be was that there was going to be 4 gels. Well, at least at one point they had 4 gels in mind. I don't know if they had a 5th one. I feel like they did have more, but they didn't actually utilize them. They had some more in mind. Actually, no, there was a 5th gel. That's right. I think there might have been more than 5 though. There's at least the space or the capacity for about 8 different gels. Hence why they might have. Hence perhaps why that sign. Let me just go back. Yeah. Perhaps that's why the sign has, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at least, if not 6 slots. Was that there was a lot of different gels. The ones we ended up getting were we get the propulsion, the repulsion, and then the portal surface gel. And so the repulsion gel makes you bounce, the propulsion gel makes you move really fast, so it's good for like launching yourself through portals and the like. And the portal surface gel basically turns any surface into a portal placeable surface. And they're all very good mechanics. Another one that got nearly included, but for whatever reason didn't get included, was the purple paint, which in the original game, in Tag the Power Paint, was blue, actually. And what it would do is it would make you stick to walls. So you'd be able to, if you had purple paint on the floor and the wall here, you could just walk onto the wall and suddenly the floor would, you'd be walking along the wall. Apparently when they were testing it, a lot of people did not react very well to it. The problem was it was incredibly disorienting. In a game that's already kind of disorienting for when you're flying through portals and stuff, going from a wall to suddenly a floor and changing perspective, oh god. Suddenly changing perspective like that, it was already confusing which way was up. And the sticky gel basically heightened that problem. So they decided to take it out. I wish they didn't just take it out. I wish they just reformed it, or like put it into a DLC pack, for instance. But unfortunately it was completely removed. They never included it after that. So disappointing. But then also another gel that became apparent, became aware of, mainly because the sticky gel sort of almost still worked in this in the game engine when they released it. But then after updates, the gel stopped working. But what people found was that that gel now had a different property, and that was that it was much more silver in color, and when they would fire a laser at it, it would bounce off the gel. So there was going to be a laser redirection gel, which once again could have been really interesting, but I don't know if it still works. I'd have to look back at my test maps again and see if I could find one where I had lasers that are being redirected by the paint. But nevertheless, let's move on. This video is already getting pretty long. That was the first one, wasn't it? Yeah, first one of 2. Cool. So this releases the box, doesn't it? No, down the side. That's right. Yeah, so originally in Tag, the paint only ever made you jump a certain height, but of course they changed it for this to make it. Oh god, I goofed. I done goofed. Let's do that properly. Let's do that again. Yeah. Oh god. I really like this level,
just
actually.
Informed me that I should not have mentioned the control group. They're telling me I ought to stop making these pre-recorded messages. That gave me an idea.
Make more pre-recorded messages.
I pay the bills here. I can talk about the control group all damn day.
See, I love his attitude. I love his attitude towards life, everything. I'm just gonna quickly go over here, just in case. Yep. Here's a little office that I'm assuming is an office that they were using for recording test information and the like. Yeah, I actually really like that first chamber because of the way it's structured. Is very good at highlighting the functions, the key functions of the gel. Right, so that's the exit to the previous chamber. I also like the chamber structure in here. I love that it's all open and bare like this. But yeah, that's where we started, and now we're making our way through.
For this next test, we put nanoparticles in the gel. In layman's terms, that's a billion little gizmos that are going to travel into your bloodstream and pump experimental genes and RNA molecules and so forth into your tumors. Now, maybe you
Just
don't have
your
any
tumors.
Well, don't worry. If you sat on a folding chair in the lobby and weren't wearing lead underpants, we took care of that too.
This is, remember, at this time, their test subjects are athletes and astronauts and the like. They're just giving astronauts and stuff tumors. It's so concerning.
We had to come up with old-looking versions for all the important gameplay props, such as button panels, doors, cubes, basically everything the player could interact with. We came up with this fictional character, Janitor Bob. He'd be the guy who had to maintain all of old Aperture. A guy who doesn't understand anything about science, but can fix everything with duct tape and a screwdriver. He would use everything he could get his hands on. The result might not look pretty, but it would work. So whenever we got stuck designing props for Chapter 3, we'd ask ourselves, well, how would Bob build it?
Yeah. So yeah, like instead of having the floating platforms like in the upper Aperture, they've got these little like motors and wires and bits of metal and stuff welded together. Yeah, it's just neat. Yeah, they've got this little box that's just made of wood and bits of metal stapled to the wood. Right, now what did that do again? Okay, where am I? That's right. Yeah, you just... Oh, no! This idiot. Okay, let's do this. I love that, yeah, the music in this level is tied to bouncing. So every time you bounce, you get another... And it's timed, or it's in the same timings. It's linked with the music that's currently playing, but it just heightens one of the tracks in the music. I love the dynamic music. I talk about it a lot because I love it. I love it. That was the only node in this test.
We had to...
Yeah, okay, cool. Alrighty, let's solve this thing. Yeah, there are lots of puzzles like this in the Tag, the Power of Paint, where you have to bounce off the walls. I'm probably moving in the opposite direction of my character when I'm doing that, mainly because I believe my camera is showing you a real real image of me and not a reversed one.
Oh, in case you got covered in that repulsion gel, here's some advice the lab boys gave me. do
not get covered in the repulsion gel.
We haven't entirely nailed down what element it is yet, but I'll tell you this, it's a lively one, and it does not like the human skeleton.
Does it make sense? Like, if its intended purpose is to make things like bounce off of itself or bounce off of other things, like a human getting coated with it, something organic getting coated with it, it's like catastrophic for the internals, for any solid materials that it has.
All these science spheres are made of asbestos, by the way. Keeps out the rats. Let us know if you feel a shortness of breath, a persistent dry cough, or your heart stopping. Because that's not part of the test.
That's asbestos.
The good news is the lab boys say the symptoms of asbestos poisoning show a median latency of 44.6 years. So if you're 30 or older, you're laughing. Worst case scenario, you miss out on a few rounds of canasta. Plus, you forwarded the cause of science by 3 centuries. I punch those numbers into my calculator and it makes a happy face.
I love that it's like, yeah, you might get asbestos poisoning. If you feel these feelings, that's not part of the test. That's asbestos. That's like pretty much my favorite line of the entire game. There's like a lot of great lines, but I just love that one. That's my absolute favorite. That's not part of the test. That's asbestos. And the fact that it's like, worst case scenario, you know, it takes about 40 years to kill you, so worst case scenario is that you'll just miss a few rounds of canasta, which I'm assuming is like an old people game sort of thing. So yeah. Anyway, let's listen to this before we go in so we can hear it.
While re-implementing the paint mechanics from our student game Tag the Power of Paint, in the context of Portal 2, the biggest change we made was to exclude the paint gun. In Tag, our paint gun allowed the player to paint the environment freely in an abstract outdoor environment, but in our gameplay experiments, that was very difficult to constrain without contrivance in Portal 2's indoor spaces.
Yeah.
It also changed the game's pacing significantly, since being able to run at high speed around a level covering everything in paint is a lot more fast-paced, energetic, and often scattershot than Portal's more cerebral gameplay. Perhaps most importantly, there's a certain elegance in the simplicity of manipulating all the game elements, using only the portal gun. Adding a new gun would inherently add complexity, and force us to start from square one, training the player how to use this new tool, instead of focusing on the game's namesake. Instead, we decided to use the established mechanism of the delivery tubes, and have players redirect the flow of the paint with their portal guns. This felt like a good compromise.
Yeah, I actually think that what it points out there is exactly the decisions when it came to how they implemented the paint is exactly how I think they should have implemented it. I mean, it's cool to have a paint gun, like in Aperture Tag, or in the original Tag, Power Paint. The problem is that mechanic is, yeah, as he said, is very difficult to limit. I think they actually did a really good job in Aperture Tag, actually. They had a difficult challenge, and they managed to limit the player, or, you know, managed to make an interesting puzzle, you know, interesting set of puzzles, an interesting set of rules around that device. I think it is, their work is excellent. But I actually agree, for Portal, it was the better option, a better choice to orient the gameplay back towards the portal gun, back towards portals, and use the gel to further the portal's functions. So utilizing the portals helps extend the functions of the gel, or the, you know, funnels or light bridges, all of those things. Like, the portals are utilized to make them better and help, and so, you know, using them and using portals to advance yourself through the chambers. Yeah, as I said, while I think a paint gun would have been cool, a cool thing to have, having 2 guns, or having to switch between the guns, could cause all sorts of issues with gameplay. It would have made it more frustrating, I think. Their choice to double down on the portal gun and make the player have to maneuver the paint with the portal gun made for a far better testing elements, made far better gameplay elements in the end. So, yeah.
I like your style. You make up your own rules, just like me. Yep. Bean Counter said I couldn't fire a man just for being in a wheelchair. Did it anyway. Ramps are expensive.
Sorry, that wasn't about him firing a man in a wheelchair. That's pretty tragic. But I once again, still, I like his attitude. But no, I realized what this level was. This is one of the first levels they showed the paint in. In that very first repulsion gel demo that they showed, or, you know, the trailers and things that they showed this level. But this level looks very different from the level they showed, because what they ended up doing that original testing chamber was up in normal aperture. It was up in the you know, the Wheatley area part, you know, sort of the Wheatley stage of the game with all new surfaces, all new panels and everything. But what they did is they took the same level, completely visually overhauled it to the old style, and re-included it almost exactly as it was in the original, in the demo that they showed. So let's just do this. So yeah, it's solved in the same way. Oops, wrong portal. Yep, and then there's one down here. And one there. Oh god, I nearly didn't make it. There we go. And then solved the same way that the original was solved. Except I haven't, oh, I didn't do the, previously I have done it the same way where they wait for a blob to go through, and then as soon as the blob goes through, they go through and follow the blob. I think it's fantastic.
We gave you earlier had fluorescent calcium in it so we can track the neuronal activity in your brain. There's a slight chance the calcium could harden and vitrify your frontal lobe. Anyway, don't stress yourself thinking about it.
That freaks me out.
Visualizing the scenario while under stress actually triggers the reaction.
It's like, why did he tell you that? Yeah, naturally, Cave tells you not to worry about it, because actually worrying about it is going to cause it to happen. It's like, yeah, brain stuff like that bothers the hell out of me. Although that one, not so much. It's the one that's coming up that bothers the hell out of me.
Now, if you're part of control group Kepler-7, we implanted a tiny microchip about the size of a postcard into your skull. Most likely you've forgotten it's even there. But if it starts vibrating and beeping during this next test, let us know. Because that means it's about to hit 500 degrees, so we're going to need to go ahead and get that out of you pretty fast.
That, oh my god, that bothers the hell out of me. The idea that there's a burning hot... Oh. The idea that there's a burning hot, postcard-sized chip in your brain.
Alright, this next test may involve trace amounts of time travel. So, word of advice, if you meet yourself on the testing track, don't make eye contact. Lab boys tell me that'll wipe out time. Entirely. Forward and backward. So, do both of yourselves a favor and just let that handsome devil go about his business.
For whatever reason, this particular chamber has time travel in it, apparently. It's like, how? What? Why? We're testing gels and portals. How is time involved at all? But no, the idea of your brain being cooked by a chip inside your, you know, a postcard-sized chip in your brain. It's genuinely, this game brought on, and continually brings on, phobias of mine. Accidents hurt. You will be hurt. Co-workers, don't endanger others. The company, replacements are costly. Science, investigations impede progress. Safety first. It's like, they're concerned about safety, but for like all the wrong reasons, as is typical. Okay, I need this. I think I just place it there. If I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's another example of a catapult, by the way, that the physics there don't quite make sense.
If you're hearing this, it means you're taking a long time on the catwalks between tests. The lab boys say that might be a fear reaction. I'm no psychiatrist, but coming from a bunch of eggheads who wouldn't recognize the thrill of danger if it walked up and snapped their little pink bras, that sounds like projection. They didn't fly into space, storm the beach, or bring back the gold. No, sir, we did. It's you and me against the world, son. I like your grit. Hustle could use some work, though. Now let's solve this thing.
See, I actually really do like Cave Johnson. Like, he often comes and says that kind of thing. Things like that just make you, like, it's like, yeah, like, sometimes, yeah, I won't talk too much about the psychology there.
One of the things that the student game Tag the Power of Paint didn't allow was painting of other objects, since this would have been too trivial in that game. In Portal 2, however, moving paint around became a puzzle in and of itself, so we began to create puzzles that depended on painting objects. Bouncy boxes and turrets were an obvious choice, and adding this mechanic extended our toolbox to include objects whose basic properties of movement could be changed by the player.
Yeah, actually, this is a fantastic moment, a really cool sort of cinematic moment, and one that involves an achievement that's quite hard to do. But we'll see if we can do it. I mean, I've already got the achievement, but we'll see if I can do it. Yeah. Basically, it's in a glass cage. It's random which side this comes out, so I probably won't be able to do it. Ah, there we are. If you grab it before it bounces on the floor, that gives you an achievement. Come on. There we go. I don't know if I can get that top one. I can, and I did. But yeah, now that the box is bouncy, we have to clean it. There we go. Before we can place it on here. But much like the laser puzzle from earlier, you have to do a little more than just that. Yep, I'll just put it up there. Yeah, to get rid of the box off of the button to... This keeps wanting to go back down because the box keeps bouncing on it. Then we just leave the box to bounce indefinitely.
Why not? Why is so much of our science dangerous? Why not marry safe science?
You love it so much.
In fact, why not invent a special
safety door that won't kick you on the ass?
On the way out, because you are fired. I use that subject. You're doing fine. Yes, you. Box your stuff out the door. Parking lot, car, goodbye.
I love the madness in Cave Johnson's head. I love that he's trying to make a point, but it's clear that he feels personally insulted by someone in particular. In this case, some scientist in the back has made some comment about it. This isn't safe.
Congratulations. The simple fact that you're standing here listening to me means you've made a glorious contribution to science. As founder and CEO of Aperture Science, I thank you for your participation and hope we can count on you for another round of tests. We're not going to release this stuff into the wild until it's good and damn ready, so as long as you keep yourself in top physical form, there'll always be a limo waiting for you. Say goodbye, Carolyn.
Goodbye, Carolyn.
She is a gem.
She is a gem. Yeah, I won't say anything about Carolyn just yet, but yeah, as soon as I started hearing Carolyn, I was like, oh my god, I know. Oh my god. I started losing my mind. Thank you for your participation. Yeah, so this is like the exit of the, I think it's the 60s. I think this area is supposed to be the 60s, because the next area that involves the propulsion gel is set in the 70s. And then the portal gel is set in the 80s, and then the 90s is supposed to be when GLaDOS took over. So
the newer and older versions of Aperture show their distinct personalities in sound as well as visuals. The doors, floors, and buttons, as well as soundscapes, reflect the aging, outdated 70s feel. The sounds contain hints of the decaying metal and wood. The newer but unstable Wheatley chamber soundscapes become more foreboding and perilous the further you venture into them. The atmosphere of uncontrolled destruction continues to intensify till the end.
Yeah. So yeah, we're basically, as the title actually, as the name, the name of the chapter, The Fall, is actually quite sort of multi-layered in the sense that we're not just we didn't just fall at the start of the chamber. We're watching what is essentially the fall of Aperture. So at the moment, it's in its glory days, and as we move along, it's slowly going to fall. Slowly going to get harder and harder for Aperture. But yeah, so now we're at we were at, oh god, that was upside down. We were at Pump Station Alpha. Now we're at is it Beta? Are we at the Pump Station Beta? I don't remember now. All right, all good. Yep. So yeah, for a minute there, I was like, where is that surface? There it is. Yeah, see, something that for some reason I haven't thought to bring up yet is the fact that when you go through a portal at a weird angle and you have to reorient yourself, in Portal 2 they made it happen a lot faster. Originally in Portal 1 you would slowly reorient back into, you know, back in line with up and down. But they found that a lot of these puzzles, well, probably they found with Portal 1 as well as, yeah, okay, this is Pump Station Beta. As with Portal 1 and extended into Portal 2's development, people found it very disorienting, the sort of slow movement back to position. So with Portal 2 they basically just ramped up the speed that you reorient yourself. It's generally one of the nicest additions to the way that the portals work and the physics works for the character, because that was always a problem. I think even in my developer commentary playthrough of Portal 1, there were a couple times there where, because of the fact that I was very slowly reorienting, I wasn't able to shoot at Portal. Like, I think the challenge where you've got to jump down a huge pit and then, like, fly up, fire a portal on a higher platform, then fall, fly up, shoot another platform. I failed that one the first time round when I was doing that playthrough, because, for whatever reason, my character didn't orient properly, and so I was, like, caught in a weird orientation problem, which basically doesn't happen in this game because of the additions. So yeah, now we link the repulsion gel to this part of Aperture, and we also start up the propulsion gel from this area. And so now the alpha station is pumping from the bottom right up to here now, and the propulsion is pumping from here onto the next pump station. So yeah, now we're in later Aperture. This is is it the 80s? No, this is the 70s. Yeah, so this is the early 70s. Damn, the music already stopped. I love that music that plays in this area.
Greetings, friend. I'm Cave Johnson, CEO of Aperture Science. You might know us as a vital participant in the 1968 Senate hearings on missing astronauts. And you've most likely used one of the many products we invented, but that other people have somehow managed to steal from us. Black Mesa can eat my bankrupt...
Sir, the testing?
Right.
Oh, Carolyn.
Now you might be asking yourself, Cave, just how difficult are these tests? What was in that phone book of a contract I signed? Am I in danger? Let me answer those questions with a question. Who wants to make $60? Cash. You can also feel free to relax for up to 20 minutes in the waiting room, which is a damn sight more comfortable than the park benches most of you were sleeping on when we found you.
Yeah.
So, welcome to Aperture. You're here because we want the best, and you're it. Nope. Couldn't keep a straight face. Anyway, don't smudge up the glass down there. In fact, why don't you just go ahead and not touch anything unless it's test related?
Yeah. So yeah, 10 years later, after all of the expenses they put on getting astronauts and the like to be, and limousines and stuff, yeah, they're in a bad place now. They are, yeah, as he said, bankrupt basically. If you see an orange jumpsuit, hit the red button. Someone has escaped from the chambers. Yeah, basically now they're having to hire hobos off the side of the street and give them $60. But we'll just go into the little secret room at the back here, because we've got some more of these.
If you're allergic to peanuts, you might want to tell somebody now, because this next test may turn your blood into peanut water for a few minutes. On the bright side, if we can make this happen, they're going to have to invent a new type of Nobel Prize to give us, so hang in there.
Why would they give you a Nobel Prize for that? What could the possible reason be for doing that?
The average human male is about 60% water. As far as we're concerned, that's a little extravagant. So if you feel a bit dehydrated in this next test, that's normal. We're going to hit you with some jet engines and see if we can't get you down to 20 or 30%.
Why? Why?
Alright, we're working on a little teleportation experiment. Now, this doesn't work with all skin types, so try to remember which skin is yours, and if it doesn't teleport along with you, we'll do what we can to sew you right back into it.
Sew you back into it. Ah. Their choices are very questionable. So yeah, this is a giant shipyard. Who knows why it's this low in the ground, why it's this deep underground, but there's a shipyard, a giant shipyard here. It used to have a giant ship or boat of some variety. And what do we know? It's where the Borealis was stored. Ah, I still pine for the day when we could finally get a resolution to the Half-Life story. I don't think that day's ever gonna happen. Unless my my devious plan of somehow managing to find myself on the development team for Valve, at Valve, one of the development teams at Valve, and pushing as much as I could to... that was a genuine thought that went through my brain about 7 or 8 years ago. I remember thinking to myself, that's what I want to do. I want to become a developer, game developer, try my best to aim for Valve, aim to try and join Valve, with the intention of basically being one of the guys who just... Their structure, the way that they work at Valve, is that they get to pick and choose basically what they want to work on, who wants to work on what, and they get freedom of choice for what development team they join. And the people at the company basically decide what they're working on. I'm one of those people who wants to work, you know, find my way on there, so that I could at least start, or at least be part of, basically be a team, form a team, or join a team that is working on what could be at least a resolution, if not a full Half-Life game to solve that. I don't think it'll ever happen, but one can dream. One can dream. Oh dear. Anyway, yeah.
Say, you're good at murder. Could you, murder this bird for me?
The bird?
Oh, thanks.
You're good at murder.
Did you feel that? That idiot doesn't know what he's doing up there. This
Yeah, you
whole
can
place
hear.
is going to explode in a few hours if somebody doesn't disconnect him. I can't move, and unless you're planning to saw your own head off and wedge it into my old body, you're going to need me to replace him. We're at an impasse. So what do you say? You carry me up to him and put me back into my body, and I stop us from blowing up and let you go.
Yeah.
No tricks. This potato only generates 1.1 volts of electricity. I literally do not have the energy to lie to you. Even if I am lying, what do you have to lose? You're going to die either way. Look, I don't like this any more than you do. In fact, I like it less because I'm the one who got partially eaten by a bird.
I love all the bird stuff.
Wow, you stabbed me. What is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Do you have a multimeter? Never mind. The gun must be part magnesium. It feels like I'm outputting an extra half a volt. Keep an eye on me. I'm going to do some scheming. Here I go.
She starts trying to think, you know, to...
Where are we? How long have I been out?
This is
An extra half volt helps, but it isn't going to power miracles. If
Yeah.
I think too hard, I'm going to fry this potato before we get a chance to burn up in the atomic fireball that little idiot is going.
I love the idea that, yeah, she, like, her systems need power, and the portal gun basically gives her a teeny bit more power, so she's able to exert herself just a little bit more than normal, but, like, she keeps trying to exert herself but beyond her 1 and 1.6 volts, basically, and keeps, like, shutting down temporarily. But yeah, so she was just... The nest was placed right on top of the elevator control button, so you have to pick her up. But we'll listen.
The character of Potatoes was actually the hardest one to crack for us.
Potatoes.
The last character to get recorded. We'd always wanted to switch things up for the sequel, so that Gladys would become your unwilling buddy cop partner against a new threat. But this ended up being far more entertaining as a concept than an execution. It's one thing to have an omnipotent villain chastising you while you're testing. It's quite another to have a little potato on your gun doing the same. Playtesters wanted to tear her off the gun, and we didn't blame them. So we were faced with the unsettling prospect of making dry, robotic supervillain GLaDOS more human and relatable. This ended up being one of the hardest writing jobs in the game.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that they persevered and did it, because it's one of my favorite things about this game. That apparently, I'll just talk about it because most people probably already know about it. The whole Carolyn is GLaDOS thing. They'll talk about it in a minute, but I just feel like I need to talk about it now. That apparently was not developed for some time. Like they had the idea of making GLaDOS be nice to you for this period while you have her on your gun, as I said, because playtesters were annoyed if she continued to berate them when she was a potato. You know, she has no place berating you. You're essentially saving her. Yeah. So they were sort of forced to make her nice to you. But the whole GLaDOS being Carolyn basically didn't come through, you know. And it's, once again, sorry, just to interrupt myself. Another reflection where you've got to go through the aperture sign to get into the next chambers. I think it's a little neat detail. But yeah, they hadn't thought about Carolyn being GLaDOS initially. Carolyn was just a minor character that was like Greg, like Cave Johnson always talks about Greg, one of the scientists. But yeah, it sort of dawned on them, or the idea dawned on them, that they could make this basically turn this part of the game into an origin story for GLaDOS, which I think is really cool. And I like that there's a person in there, essentially. And actually, that I mentioned it earlier about there's that scene that always gives me goosebumps whenever I hear it, where GLaDOS is humming. So before it actually starts, we're not going to go any further for this episode, but there's that scene earlier on where GLaDOS is humming after you hear the turrets practicing their opera, essentially. GLaDOS is humming some song, and I always feel like that's a hint towards the fact that there is something inside her system that is sort of, it's there, but it's faint. And I love that that essentially it's essentially foreshadowing to these points where her inner self, the Carolyn, basically is drawn out of her. And we'll see that in the next chapter. But we'll leave this video here. So thank you so much for watching. If you like what you saw, hit like. If you want to see more, then subscribe. It's as simple as that. I make videos on the Portal, things like Portal development commentary, my own work on the Portal mods and games, as well as Let's Plays of all sorts of things. And I try and upload daily, so subscribe if you wish to see more of me. More of my, well, not even of me, just of the games that I play, if you want to see more games. But yeah, nevertheless, once again, thank you so much for watching, and as always, I think that's getting weaker. Each time I try and bow and do my hat tilt thing, I feel like it's getting weaker each time. I might need to come up with a new outro thing. But nevertheless,